The massive space station called Kepler Station floated in the cold darkness around a dying red star. Inside its metal walls, millions of beings from different worlds worked and lived together. The station served as the greatest library in this part of the galaxy, holding stories and records from thousands of different species. ZX single quotes HAI moved through the quiet halls of the archive section with his 4 arms carrying data crystals. His green-scaled skin reflected the soft blue light from the storage units. As a Vorthak, he had dedicated his long life to collecting and preserving the myths and legends of the galaxy. Today he was organizing the collection of ancient tales that most people considered pure fantasy. He stopped at a particular storage unit that always drew visitors. The label read Terran Myths and Human Legends in the Common Galactic Language. Zexhai touched the control panel and the unit opened with a soft hiss. Inside were hundreds of data crystals, each containing stories about a species that supposedly lived on a small blue world called Earth, according to the legends. These creatures, called humans, were unlike any other known species. They stood on 2 legs and had no natural weapons like claws or fangs. Their skin was soft and easily damaged. Yet the stories claimed they were the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever known. They could survive in environments that would kill most other beings. They could go without food for weeks and still fight. Most strange of all, they were said to be the only species that produced water from their eyes. When they felt strong emotions, the tales spoke of human warriors who would fight until their last breath, never surrendering even when facing certain death. They described human scientists who would risk everything to gain knowledge. The stories told of human artists who created beauty from nothing, and human leaders who would sacrifice themselves to save others. What made the other species laugh was the human concept of holding grudges. The stories claimed that humans never forgot when someone wronged them, even after many years had passed. They would wait patiently for the right moment to get revenge. This seemed impossible to most galactic species, who preferred to resolve conflicts quickly and move on. Down in the military section of the station, Commander Vextel was giving his daily briefing to a group of young Xanthari officers. His purple skin was marked with the battle scars that showed his high rank in the Empire. The Xanthari had ruled this region of space for over 3,000 years, and their military was feared throughout the galaxy. Today we will discuss the dangers of primitive thinking, Vextel said to his students. There are still some beings who believe in the old human myths. They think these imaginary creatures actually existed somewhere in the galaxy. The young officers laughed at this idea. One of them asked, "Commander, why would anyone believe such silly stories?" Vextel activated a holographic display showing various alien species. Because fear makes people stupid. The human myths describe creatures that never give up, never surrender, and never forget their enemies. Weak species create these stories to explain why they lose wars. They want to believe that somewhere there exists a species that fights like they wish they could. He changed the display to show a map of the galaxy. Our empire has conquered hundreds of worlds. We have faced the fierce Krogthan warriors, the intelligent Altarians, and the cunning Selenites. None of them fight like the humans in these myths. Real war is about superior technology, better tactics, and stronger leadership. Not about impossible creatures who cry tears and hold grudges. The briefing continued for another hour, with Vextel explaining how the Xanthari Empire had grown so powerful by ignoring such foolish stories and focusing on practical military science. Meanwhile, in the science section of the station, Dr. Lina Voss was working late in her laboratory. To everyone around her, she appeared to be an Altarian researcher with slightly modified features. Her pale blue skin and large eyes fit the appearance of that scholarly species. But this was all an elaborate disguise. Lina was actually human, one of the few of her kind living secretly among the galactic civilization. She had spent the last 15 years studying alien cultures and sending reports back to Earth. Her real skin was a warm brown color, and her eyes were much smaller than they appeared. Advanced technology hidden beneath her artificial skin allowed her to maintain the disguise. She touched a small device behind her ear and spoke quietly. "Captain Morrison, this is Dr. Voss. Are you receiving my transmission?" The reply came through a tiny speaker that only she could hear. "We hear you, Doctor. What is your report?" "The situation remains the same. The galactic species still consider us to be nothing more than myths and legends. The Xanthari Empire continues to expand, and they are planning to explore new sectors of space. I intercepted a military communication today that concerns me." "What kind of communication?" Lina pulled up a holographic display of military documents. "The Xanthari are planning what they call a routine expansion into the Outer Rim territories. They want to claim uninhabited star systems for mining operations. The problem is that one of their target areas includes the Sol system." There was silence for a moment before Captain Morrison replied, "How long before they reach Earth?" "According to their timeline, the advanced scouts will arrive in our solar system within 6 months. They expect to find nothing but empty space and maybe some primitive microorganisms on the third planet. Do they have any idea what they will actually find?" Lina looked around her laboratory to make sure no one was listening. None at all. "They think Earth is just another uninhabited world ready for exploitation. The Xanthari have no concept of a species that could hide its entire civilization from galactic detection." "What about the other species? Would any of them help us if conflict breaks out?" "The Altarians value knowledge above all else. They might be interested in studying us, but they avoid military conflicts. The Krogthan respect strength, but they have never seen humans fight. The Selenites are diplomats who prefer negotiation to war. None of them would stand against the Xanthari Empire without proof that we are worth the risk." Captain Morrison's voice carried a note of concern. "Doctor, you need to be ready to reveal yourself when the time comes. Your knowledge of their cultures will be essential." "I understand, Captain. But once I drop this disguise, there is no going back. The galactic community will know that humans have been watching them for decades. That time is coming whether we want it or not. The Xanthari expansion fleet is already being assembled. Our long period of observation is about to end." Lina ended the transmission and returned to her work. Around her, the space station continued its normal operations. Millions of beings went about their daily lives, unaware that everything was about to change. In the archives, Zexhai was closing the human mythology section for the night. He paused for a moment, looking at the collection of stories that had fascinated him for so many years. The tales of human determination and courage seemed too incredible to be true, yet something about them felt real. He had read every story in the collection multiple times. The descriptions of human technology that seemed impossible, human tactics that defied conventional wisdom, and human emotions that drove them to incredible acts of heroism or terrible acts of vengeance. If even half of these stories were true, humans would be the most remarkable species in the galaxy, but they were just stories, told by primitive cultures to explain the unexplainable. The real galaxy was ruled by species like the Xanthari, who had built their empire through superior technology and military might. There was no place in this universe for creatures who fought with their hearts instead of their minds. As Zexhai turned off the lights in the archive section, he had no idea that somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the subjects of those ancient myths were preparing to make themselves known to the galaxy. The Age of Legends was about to become the Age of Reality, and nothing would ever be the same again. Admiral Lisa Kane stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the stars through the massive viewscreen. The ship was enormous, stretching nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull was made of materials that did not exist in any galactic database. The fusion reactors that powered it burned hotter than most stars, and the weapon systems could punch holes through planets around her. The bridge crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. These men and women had trained their entire lives for this moment. Their families had trained for this moment. For over 200 years, humanity had been preparing for the day when they would no longer be able to hide from the galaxy. "Admiral, we are receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command," reported Lieutenant Commander Amy Sullivan from her tactical station. Her voice was steady, but Lisa could see the tension in her shoulders. "Put it through," Lisa ordered. The face of Fleet Admiral Marcus Stone appeared on the main screen. Behind him, the lights of Earth Command flickered with urgent activity. "All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Stone. Operation Revelation is now active. The Xanthari Advanced Fleet has entered the outer solar system. They are moving toward Earth with hostile intent." Lisa felt her heart rate increase, but her voice remained calm. "Understood, Admiral. What are our orders?" "You are authorized to reveal the existence of humanity to the galaxy. All hidden fleets are to decloak and take defensive positions. The age of hiding is over." The transmission ended, and Lisa turned to her crew. Every face on the bridge showed the same mixture of fear and determination. They had always known this day would come. The question was whether humanity was ready for what came next. "All hands, this is Admiral Kane," she spoke into the ship's communication system. "Today we stop being a secret. Today we show the galaxy what humans can do. Battle stations." Throughout the ship, alarms began to sound. Crew members ran to their positions as the Liberty's massive engines came online. The ship's stealth systems, which had kept it hidden for decades, were shut down. For the first time in its operational history, the used Liberty was visible to alien sensors. Captain Ben Rodriguez received the same orders aboard the UES Valor. His ship was smaller than the Liberty, but just as deadly. The Valor specialized in fast attacks and hit-and-run tactics. Ben had been born on Mars and had never seen Earth with his own eyes, but he was ready to die defending it. "Sir, we are detecting multiple alien vessels approaching from the Jupiter sector," reported his sensor officer. They matched the profiles Dr. Voss provided for Xanthari warships. Ben studied the tactical display. 12 enemy ships were moving in a standard exploration formation. They had no idea what they were about to encounter. "Take us to intercept course. Signal the Liberty and Retribution that we are moving to engage." The Xanthari fleet was led by Commander Vexthal, the same officer who had been teaching about human myths just days earlier. His flagship, the Dominion, was a massive vessel that had conquered dozens of worlds. Behind him followed 11 other ships, each one a veteran of countless battles. "Commander, we are detecting unusual energy signatures." "Ahead," reported his sensor operator. "The readings do not match any known technology." Vexthal looked at the display with interest. "Probably some kind of natural phenomenon. This system is supposed to be uninhabited. Continue our approach to the third planet." But then something impossible happened. Ships began to appear out of empty space. First one, then 5, then dozens. They were unlike anything in the galactic databases. Their hulls were smooth and angular, with no visible weapons ports. Yet the energy readings from these vessels were off the charts. "What are those ships?" Vexthal demanded. "Where did they come from?" His tactical officer was frantically running scans. "Sir, I am detecting at least 40 vessels of unknown design. They appear to be moving into attack formation." The lead human ship opened a communication channel. Admiral Kane's face appeared on the Xanthari screens, and her words were translated into their language. "Attention Xanthari fleet. You are entering human space without permission. Turn around and leave immediately, or we will consider your presence an act of war." Vexthal stared at the image in shock. The creature on the screen looked almost like the descriptions from the old myths. 2 eyes, soft skin, no visible natural weapons. But there was something in her expression that made him uncomfortable. A hardness that suggested she was not bluffing. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Humans are not real." "Sir, should we respond?" asked his communications officer. Vexthal straightened in his command chair. "Tell them we are the Xanthari Empire. We go where we choose. If they do not move aside, we will destroy them." The response came back immediately. "Then you have chosen war." What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. The human ships did not wait for a formal declaration of hostilities. They did not send warnings or negotiate terms. They simply attacked. The UES Valor launched the first strike. Captain Rodriguez ordered his weapons officer to fire a full spread of kinetic projectiles at the Zentari flagship. The rounds traveled at nearly one-third the speed of light, striking the alien ship before its shields could fully activate. The Dominion shuddered under the impact. Vexthel was thrown from his chair as explosions rocked the bridge. Impossible! Our shields should have stopped that, but the humans were not finished. Lieutenant Commander Sullivan aboard the Liberty calculated the exact moment when the enemy shields would cycle to regenerate. She fired a second volley that passed through the gap and struck the Zentari hull directly. The alien ships tried to respond, but they were designed for the conventional warfare that had dominated the galaxy for millennia. Their tactics assumed that battles would begin with formal challenges and proceed according to established rules. The humans had no interest in following those rules. Captain Rodriguez demonstrated this when his ship took severe damage from a Zentari energy weapon. Instead of retreating or calling for support, he ordered his crew to ram the nearest enemy vessel. The Valor's reinforced hull punched through the alien ship's shields and tore a massive hole in its side. The Zentari crews watched in horror as the human ship sacrificed itself to destroy their cruiser. This was not how civilized species fought wars. This was madness, but it was effective madness. Within 30 minutes, 6 Zentari ships had been destroyed or crippled. The remaining vessels were in full retreat, broadcasting emergency signals to their home fleet. Commander Vexthel found himself alone on the bridge of his damaged flagship. His crew was either dead or unconscious. The ship's life support was failing and the engines were offline. Through the flickering viewscreen, he could see human ships surrounding him. Admiral Kane's voice came through the communication system. Commander Vexthel, surrender your vessel and prepare to be boarded. Your crew will be treated according to human standards of prisoner welfare. Vexthel wanted to refuse, but his ship was powerless. He had no choice but to comply. As human Marines boarded his vessel, he realized that everything he had believed about the galaxy was wrong. The myths were true. Humans were not only real, but they were everything the stories claimed and more. The battle for Earth's solar system was over, but the war for the galaxy's future had just begun. As news of the encounter spread through faster-than-light communication networks, every species in the galaxy would have to decide what they thought about the return of humanity. In the archives of Kepler Station, Zexai received an urgent message, updating the human mythology files. The new classification read, reclassified from myth to active threat level maximum. The age of legends had ended, and the age of reality had begun. The news spread through the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. Within hours of the battle in the Sol system, every major species knew that humans were not myths. They were real, they were dangerous, and they had just destroyed a Zentari fleet without losing a single ship. On the Zentari homeworld of Nexus Prime, Emperor Kethvan sat in his throne room surrounded by his military advisors. The massive hall was built from black stone that had been quarried from conquered worlds. Banners showing the victories of the Empire hung from the walls. But today, those victories felt less important. "Show me the battle recordings again," the Emperor commanded. The holographic display activated, showing the brief but devastating encounter. The human ships appeared from nowhere, struck with impossible speed, and disappeared just as quickly. Most disturbing was the way they fought. No warnings, no negotiations, no mercy. General Thaxmer, the Emperor's chief military advisor, pointed at the display. "Your Majesty, these creatures fight like wild animals. They have no concept of civilized warfare." "Civilized warfare did not save our fleet," Emperor Kethvan replied coldly. "Commander Vexthel commanded our best ships and most experienced crews. They were destroyed in minutes. The humans caught us by surprise, nothing more. A full battle fleet would crush them easily." The Emperor was not convinced. These are the same humans from the old stories. The myths spoke of creatures who never surrendered and never forgot their enemies. If the stories are true, what else might be true? Meanwhile, on the research world of Altair 7, Chief Researcher Quinder was having a very different reaction to the news. The Altarians were known throughout the galaxy for their love of knowledge and their peaceful nature. They had never been conquered by the Xanthari because they offered no resistance and freely shared their discoveries. Fascinating, Quinder said as he studied the human ship designs. Look at these energy signatures. They are using fusion technology that we thought was impossible. His assistant, a young Altarian named Veltar, looked confused. Sir, our scientists proved that such high-energy fusion reactions would destroy any known hull material. Exactly. Which means the humans have developed materials that we have never seen before. And look at their weapon systems. They are using simple kinetic projectiles but accelerating them to speeds that would require enormous amounts of energy. Why would they use such primitive weapons when energy beams are more efficient? Quinder smiled, which was a rare expression for his species. Because kinetic weapons cannot be stopped by conventional shields. The humans have found a way to make old technology work better than new technology. This shows a level of innovative thinking that we must study. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Galactic Coalition headquarters. The face of Ambassador Zalthek, a Selenite diplomat, appeared on their screen. Chief Researcher Quinder, we need your expertise immediately. The Coalition Council is meeting to discuss the human situation. We need to know what we are dealing with. I will prepare my findings and send them to you within the hour. Quinder replied, on the warrior world of Krogthan Prime, the reaction was entirely different. Warlord Gregthur stood in his fighting arena, surrounded by his best warriors. The Krogthan were a proud species who valued strength above all else. They had been conquered by the Xanthari not through weakness, but because they respected the Empire's military power. These humans fight like true warriors, Gregthur declared. They do not waste time with words when action is needed. His lieutenant, a scarred veteran named Torgas, nodded in agreement. The way they rammed that ship into the Xanthari cruiser shows they understand the value of sacrifice for victory. I want to meet these humans, Gregthur said. If they are as strong as the battle recordings suggest, they might be worthy allies. But not everyone was impressed by human military tactics. On the diplomatic world of Sanctuary, the Selenite Council was deeply disturbed by what they had seen. These humans are barbarians, declared Council Leader Morwen. They attack without warning and show no interest in peaceful resolution. But they were defending their home system, pointed out Councillor Yelena. The Xanthari entered their space uninvited. That does not excuse their savage behavior. Civilized species negotiate first and fight only as a last resort. The debate continued for hours, but no consensus was reached. The Selenites were torn between their natural desire for peace and their recognition that the humans might be their best hope for freedom from Xanthari rule. Back on Kepler Station, Dr. Lena Voss was preparing to end her long deception. She had received orders from Earth Command to reveal herself and serve as humanity's first official ambassador to the galactic community. The timing was perfect, but the risk was enormous. She stood in her laboratory, looking at the device that had maintained her disguise for so many years. Once she removed it, there would be no going back. The galaxy would know that humans had been watching them for decades. Zexhai entered her laboratory carrying a data crystal. Dr. Voss, I have updated the human mythology files as requested. The new classification is quite remarkable. What classification is that? Lina asked, though she already knew the answer. Active threat level maximum. The first species to receive such a rating in over 1,000 years. Lina took a deep breath and reached for the device behind her ear. Zexhai, I need to tell you something important. The human myths were never myths at all. She deactivated the disguise system. Her pale blue skin shifted to a warm brown color. Her large eyes became smaller and more expressive. Her height decreased slightly, and her bone structure changed to match her true human form. Zexhai dropped the data crystal. You are human. You have been here for years, studying us, learning our secrets. Yes, I have, and I am not the only one. Humans have been watching the galaxy for a very long time. We have been preparing for this moment. But why reveal yourself? Now? Because my people are no longer hiding. The battle in the Sol system was just the beginning. The Xanthari Empire has declared war on humanity, and the galaxy must choose sides. Zexia's forearms trembled with excitement. This is incredible. The myths were true. All of them were true. Not all of them, but enough of them to matter. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent announcement throughout the station. All residents report to emergency stations. The Xanthari Empire has issued a declaration of war against the species known as humans. All neutral species are advised to maintain distance from human territories. Lina looked at Zexai with sadness in her eyes. I am sorry, my friend. I never wanted to deceive you. But my people needed to understand the galaxy before we revealed ourselves. I understand what happens now. Now the galaxy learns what humans are truly capable of. The Xanthari think they can destroy us with superior numbers and conventional tactics. They are about to discover that humans do not fight conventional wars. Throughout the galaxy, species were making their choices. The Altarians requested permission to study human technology. The Krogthans sent a formal challenge to single combat. The Selenites called for emergency peace negotiations, but Emperor Kethvan had already made his decision. The Xanthari Empire would mobilize its entire military force to destroy humanity before the humans could spread their influence to other species. What he did not understand was that humans had been planning for this exact scenario for 2 centuries. The age of galactic peace was ending, and the age of human influence was beginning. The question was not whether humanity would survive, but whether the galaxy would survive humanity. The Xanthari war machine was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. From every corner of their empire, warships gathered into massive fleets. Emperor Kethvan had called upon 3,000 years of military might to destroy humanity once and for all. Over 2,000 ships prepared to advance on the Sol system, each one a veteran of countless conquests. Fleet Admiral Marcus Stone stood in the command center deep beneath the surface of Mars. Around him, holographic displays showed the approaching enemy forces. The numbers were not encouraging. Humanity had fewer than 50 ships capable of deep space combat. The Xanthari outnumbered them 40-1. Sir, the enemy advance fleets have entered the outer territories, reported his aide, Colonel Rick Harper. They are moving in standard conquest formation, planning to surround Earth and force surrender. Marcus studied the tactical display. The Xanthari were doing exactly what their military doctrine required. It was also exactly what humanity had hoped they would do. Send the signal to all fleet commanders. Operation Ghost Strike is now active. Captain Dana Price received the orders aboard the UES Ranger. Her ship was smaller and faster than the main battle vessels, designed for the kind of warfare that alien species did not understand. She commanded a squadron of 12 similar ships, each one packed with surprises that would shock the enemy. All ships, this is Captain Price, we are going hunting. Target the Xanthari supply convoys, not their main battle fleets. Her tactical officer looked confused. Ma'am, should we not be defending Earth? The best defense is making sure the enemy cannot fight. Those big ships need fuel, ammunition, and spare parts. We are going to make sure they do not get them. The Ranger and her sister ships disappeared into the darkness between stars. They used stealth technology that the galaxy had never seen before, making them invisible to alien sensors. Within hours, they began striking at targets that the Xanthari had never thought to defend. The first attack came against a convoy carrying antimatter fuel cells to the main fleet. The human ships appeared without warning, destroyed the cargo vessels, and vanished before the escorts could respond. The second attack hit a repair facility that serviced the Xanthari war machines. The third destroyed a communication relay that coordinated fleet movements. Admiral Vekvan, commanding the Xanthari advance fleet, was furious. How are they doing this? Our sensors show nothing, then suddenly ships appear and attack our supply lines. His intelligence officer was equally puzzled. Sir, these attacks make no military sense. They should be defending their homeworld, not wasting ships on meaningless raids. Meaningless? We have lost 12 supply convoys in 2 days. Half our fleet is operating on reserve fuel. What the Xanthari did not understand was that humans had studied their military for decades. Dr. Lena Voss had provided detailed reports on Xanthari tactics, logistics, and weaknesses. Humanity knew exactly how the alien empire fought wars, and they had prepared accordingly. Commander Steve Mitchell was leading an even more dangerous mission. His ship, the UES Shadow, was designed to look like a Xanthari vessel from the outside. Using technology stolen from captured alien ships, it could pass through enemy lines without being detected. "We are approaching the target," reported his navigator. "Xanthari Fortress World Beta 7 is directly ahead." The Fortress World was supposed to be impossible to attack. It was protected by orbital defense platforms, patrol fleets, and automated weapon systems. But Steve had studied the planet's defenses and found a weakness that only humans would think to exploit. "Take us in using Shipping Lane 7. We are going to pretend to be a cargo vessel delivering supplies." A disguised human ship approached the planet without challenge. The Xanthari defenders saw what appeared to be one of their own supply ships and allowed it to pass. Steve waited until they were close to the main military base before dropping the disguise. "All weapons, fire at will. Target the command centers first." The UES Shadow unleashed a devastating attack that crippled the planet's defenses in minutes. But instead of trying to occupy the world, Steve had a different plan. His ship deployed dozens of small devices throughout the enemy base. Mission accomplished. "Let us get out of here before they realize what just happened." The Shadow escaped before the Xanthari could mount a counterattack. But the real surprise came 12 hours later when the devices Steve had planted activated. They were not bombs or weapons. They were communication transmitters that began broadcasting a message to every person on the planet. The message was simple but powerful. It explained that humanity had no interest in conquering alien worlds or enslaving alien peoples. They only wanted to be left alone to live in peace. But if the Xanthari Empire continued its war of aggression, humans would defend themselves with every weapon at their disposal. The message also revealed information about Xanthari military plans that shocked the local population. Details about how their government had lied to them about the reasons for the war. Evidence that their leaders cared more about power than the lives of their own people. Within days, protests began on dozens of Xanthari worlds. The empire that had ruled through fear and propaganda suddenly faced rebellion from within. Emperor Kethvin was desperate. His fleets were running out of supplies, his fortress worlds were under attack, and his own people were beginning to question the war. He decided to use his ultimate weapon, a planet-killer device that could destroy Earth itself. "If we cannot defeat the humans in battle, we will eliminate their homeworld," he declared to his remaining advisors. "Once Earth is gone, they will have no choice but to surrender." The massive weapon was deployed to the edge of the Sol system under heavy guard. It required 12 hours to charge its main cannon, but once ready, it could crack a planet in half with a single shot. Admiral Kane received word of the weapon's approach aboard the UES Liberty. She had been waiting for this moment, knowing that the Xanthari would eventually resort to such desperate measures. "All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Kane. The enemy has deployed their planet killer. Execute Operation Payback immediately." Operation Payback was humanity's answer to the ultimate threat. Instead of trying to defend Earth against an unstoppable weapon, they would attack the Xanthari homeworld with equal force. Captain Ben Rodriguez, now commanding a new ship after the Valor sacrifice, led the strike force toward Nexus Prime. The human fleet used the same stealth technology that had made their other attacks so successful. They remained invisible until they were deep inside Xanthari space. "Sir, we are in position above the enemy capital," reported his tactical officer. "The planet's defenses are minimal. They moved most of their fleet to attack Earth." Ben looked at the world below him. Billions of innocent people lived on that planet, just as billions lived on Earth. The difference was that Ben had a choice about what happened next, while the Xanthari planet killer would fire automatically once it finished. "Charging." "Open a channel to Emperor Kethven," Ben ordered. The Emperor's face appeared on the screen, his expression showing shock and fear. Impossible. How did you get past our defenses? The same way we have been beating you throughout this war. We fight smarter, not harder. Your planet killer will be ready to fire in 6 hours. Our weapons are ready to fire now? You would not dare destroy our homeworld. We do not want to destroy anything. We want this war to end. Recall your weapon and withdraw your fleets from human space. Do this, and we will leave your people in peace. Emperor Kethvin looked around his throne room at his advisors. None of them had answers for this situation. The humans had done something that should have been impossible. They had threatened the heart of the Empire while most of the Xanthari fleet was light years away. If I agree to your terms, how do I know you will honor them? Because humans keep their promises, both good and bad. We promise to defend ourselves if attacked. We also promise to leave you alone if you leave us alone. The Emperor realized he had no choice. His ultimate weapon was useless if it would result in the destruction of his own world. Very well. I will recall the planet killer and order our fleets to withdraw. You have made a wise choice. But remember this moment, Emperor. The next time you think about attacking humanity, remember that we can reach your home world whenever we choose. The war was ending, but its effects would be felt throughout the galaxy for generations. Humanity had proven that superior numbers and conventional tactics were not enough to guarantee victory. They had shown that innovation, determination, and strategic thinking could overcome almost any advantage. Most importantly, they had demonstrated that the old myths were true. Humans really were the species that never gave up, never forgot their enemies, and always found a way to win. 6 months after the war ended, the galaxy was completely different. The Xanthari Empire had collapsed not through military defeat, but through the simple realization that their way of ruling no longer worked. Emperor Kethvin sat in a human prison cell, waiting for his trial to begin. This was something that shocked every species in the galaxy because defeated leaders were usually executed immediately or sent into exile. Ambassador Claire Turner walked through the halls of the new Galactic Council building on the neutral world of Haven. She had been chosen to represent humanity in the complex negotiations that would reshape interstellar law. The building itself was a symbol of change, designed by architects from 12 different species working together for the first time in history. Ambassador Turner, the Altarian delegation is ready to discuss the technology sharing agreements, said her aide, a young diplomat named Paul Martinez, who had trained his entire life for this moment. Claire nodded and entered the conference room where Chief Researcher Quinder waited with his team. The Altarians had been fascinated by human technology ever since the war ended. They wanted to understand how humans had achieved such remarkable innovations. Chief Researcher, I have reviewed your proposals, Claire said as she took her seat. Humanity is willing to share our fusion technology and manufacturing techniques. In return, we would like access to your advanced materials science and faster-than-light communication systems. Quinder's large eyes showed excitement. This exchange will benefit both our species greatly. But I must ask, how did humans develop such efficient fusion reactors? Our scientists believed such technology was impossible. We approached the problem differently. Your species tried to contain the fusion reaction using force fields and magnetic bottles. We decided to work with the reaction instead of against it. Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from the Krogthan sector. Warlord Gregther had requested another meeting with the human military advisors. The warrior species had become humanity's strongest allies after Colonel Rick Harper had defeated Gregther in ritual combat. Colonel Harper now served as the military liaison between humans and Krogthan. He had spent months on their homeworld, learning their customs and teaching them human tactics. The results had been remarkable. Krogthan warriors trained in human methods were proving to be incredibly effective peacekeepers. Colonel Harper, we have received reports of pirate activity in the Outer Rim territories, Gregther said during their video conference. The criminals believe they can take advantage of the chaos following the Empire's collapse. What kind of pirate activity? Harper asked. They are attacking refugee ships carrying former Xanthari civilians to safety. These pirates think the humans will not care about alien refugees. Harper's expression hardened. They are wrong. Humanity protects innocent people regardless of their species. I will request permission to deploy joint human-Krogthan patrol fleets to the affected areas. This is why my warriors respect humans, Gregther said with approval. You fight not just for yourselves, but for those who cannot fight. Meanwhile, on Kepler Station, Zexai was working with Dr. Lena Voss to create a new archive section. Instead of myths and legends, they were now documenting the real history of human civilization. The project had become a joint effort between multiple species, each contributing their own perspectives on recent events. Dr. Voss, I have been thinking about the old human stories, Zexai said as he organized data crystals. Many of them were accurate, but they missed the most important thing about your species. What did they miss? Lena asked. The stories talked about human warriors and human weapons and human determination, but they did not mention human kindness. Your people could have enslaved the galaxy after defeating the Xanthari. Instead, you are helping us build something better. Lina smiled, an expression that still fascinated the alien archivist. Humans learned long ago that ruling through fear only creates more enemies. We would rather have friends than subjects. The conversation was interrupted by news from the Selenite diplomatic corps. The peaceful species had been working to establish new trade agreements between the various galactic civilizations. Their natural skills at negotiation, combined with human concepts of fair dealing, were creating unprecedented cooperation. Ambassador Morwin of the Selenites was addressing the Galactic Council about the economic changes taking place. The human manufacturing techniques are revolutionizing production throughout the galaxy. Species that have been enemies for centuries are now working together on joint projects. He activated a holographic display showing trade statistics. Productivity has increased by 300% in the past 6 months. Unemployment has dropped to the lowest levels in recorded history. Most importantly, no species is being left behind in this economic growth. This was perhaps the most surprising thing about humanity's influence on the galaxy. Instead of using their technological advantages to dominate other species, they had shared their knowledge freely. Human engineers worked alongside alien scientists to solve problems that had seemed impossible. The transformation was most visible on the former Xanthari worlds. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, was overseeing the reconstruction efforts on dozens of planets. The job was enormous, but the results were encouraging. Admiral Morrison, the latest reports from the reconstruction teams are very positive, said his chief of staff, Commander Lisa Park. The former slave worlds are becoming self-sufficient much faster than we expected. Jake looked out the window of his command ship at the planet below. 6 months ago, this world had been a mining operation that used forced labor to extract resources for the Empire. Now it was becoming a thriving colony where multiple species worked together as equals. The key was giving them hope, Jake replied. The Xanthari ruled through fear and oppression. We are showing them that cooperation works better than force. The most dramatic change was in how wars were fought. The old galactic civilization had accepted conquest and slavery as normal parts of interstellar relations. Humanity had introduced concepts like war crimes trials, prisoner rights, and the protection of civilians. Emperor Kethvin's trial was being broadcast throughout the galaxy. He faced charges of genocide, slavery, and crimes against peace. The proceedings were conducted according to human legal principles, with the former emperor having the right to defend himself and call witnesses. Your Honor, I was following the traditions of my people, Kethvin said during his testimony. The Xanthari Empire has always expanded through conquest. This is how we have survived for 3,000 years. The human judge, Patricia Coleman, listened carefully before responding. Tradition does not excuse the suffering of innocent people. This court recognizes that you believed you were serving your species, but your methods caused immeasurable harm to others. The trial was important. not just for justice, but for establishing the principle that leaders were responsible for their actions. This was a completely new idea for most galactic species, who had always assumed that rulers could do whatever they wanted. The economic changes were equally revolutionary. Human concepts of free markets, intellectual property rights, and worker protection were spreading throughout the galaxy. Species that had never traded with each other were now partners in massive joint ventures. Dr. Quinder was leading one such project, a research station where scientists from 20 different species worked together to explore new frontiers of knowledge. This collaboration would have been impossible under the old system, he explained to visiting dignitaries. Each species was isolated, afraid to share information with potential enemies. Now we share everything, added Dr. Sarah Kim, the human scientist leading the fusion research team. When everyone benefits from new discoveries, everyone has an incentive to contribute. The military changes were just as significant. The old galaxy had been dominated by large standing armies that existed primarily to conquer and control. The new system emphasized smaller, professional forces focused on peacekeeping and defense. Colonel Harper was training the first integrated galactic peacekeeping force, with volunteers from dozens of species learning to work together. The key is respect, he explained to his mixed class of human, Krogthan, and Altarian recruits. We protect all civilians equally, regardless of what species they belong to. As the months passed, it became clear that humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy was not their technology or their military prowess. It was their belief that all intelligent beings deserved freedom, dignity, and the chance to determine their own destiny. Zexai completed his final entry in the human archives with a simple observation: humans were never just a myth. They were a promise of what civilization could become when guided by principles of justice and compassion. The galaxy will never be the same. The age of empires was ending, and the age of cooperation was beginning. Humanity had kept their word, leaving those who left them alone while helping those who asked for assistance. The myths had become reality, and reality had proven even more remarkable than legend.